everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Decisions Now. I'm your host, Erin Pearson. I'm the VP of Marketing at Evalueserve, and I'm very excited. I have Joëlle Laubner joining me today. She is the Business Intelligence Manager at Syngenta. Joëlle, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining.
Welcome, Erin. Thank you for having me over.
Yes. So I'm really excited. You know, we've met in person a few times and have had the opportunity to work together a bit. But just for setting context for today, could you give some background to the audience on what your role is at Syngenta?
Yeah, sure, Erin. So I'm a business intelligence manager within the global strategy and business intelligence team at Syngenta Crop Protection AG. As you know, Syngenta is part of the largest Syngenta group, which is a leader in the global agribusiness market. And what I'm doing there is I'm in charge of both the competitive intelligence activities as well as the market intelligence initiatives. So I'm in charge of our internal BI network, BI platforms, which is called Agri Insider, using Insights First. And this consists actually of making sure that all professionals working on competitor intelligence topics, market intelligence topics, or you name it, are connected to each other via our network of experts. And to do so, we are also leveraging our internal platform, of course, and that we launched a few years back and that we keep updating as well.
Well, I think that's cool. And because you've been doing this for a while, you've actually been in the competitive intelligence space for, I have my numbers correct, about 10 years. And there's been naturally a lot of shifts that have been happening, not just in the past decade, but certainly in the past year in particular as well. Within 2023, AI has had a huge rise. But there's been a lot of technology that's entered the CI space, and a lot of that has been AI enabled as well. So what are the biggest changes that you've seen over this time?
Yeah, there were many changes, many shifts that have occurred over the past 10 years, Erin. And simply look back at how we started back then. I mean, I remember when we used to push like content to our internal stakeholder on a monthly basis, 60 pages long deck, updated almost manually, having 7 people working on it at the end. And this was really a high consuming and a high resource extensive exercise, kind of. And we understood after a while that only 1/3 of this was used, maybe, and relevant to people. So this shows, for me, it's a good use case to show the different steps through which the BI and CI area has gone through. First of all, we faced a period of what I would call information overflow due to digital transformation, and with companies being able to access more advanced digital technologies like web scraping, social media, monitoring, big data analytics, and so on. So that's point number one that has helped us on the above. Then point number 2 for me is related to automation and platform multiplication. This is facilitating the data collection, analysis, reporting, and all of that. And this part clearly helped to save time of ourselves, of colleagues, and people doing the same jobs as we do. Then the collaboration piece would be a third element to quote, and knowledge sharing tools as well. Because they have improved the way teams work together, the way teams communicate in an organization, and informations are more and more connected, fed to the right people, and insights are much quicker arriving at the point where the decisions are made. And the last point for me is, of course, you mentioned it already in your question, is related to artificial intelligence. This needs to be quoted as well, of course, given the hype it has, the way it acts as an enabler or as an accelerator within organizations like ours, often behind the scenes as well. But the use, which is increasing, of generative AI tools like OpenAI chats, for example, ChatGPT, is also contributing more. And we can go a little bit through it later on if you want.
Yeah. So I've always loved that story that you have about how you started with these 60-page long PowerPoint documents that would be shared out, because I just find it such a apt description of how things have changed, that despite, to your first point, how much information has increased over the past few years, people's attention spans and ability to actually interpret data has, well, maybe not interpret data, but attention spans have gone down. And so people are really just looking for that, executive summary of what the data means. So that's where all of these tools that, it's table stakes to collect certain types of public information. And then there's a lot that you still have to add on top of that. But it's that analysis that you need to do when you are sending it to the teams that are going to be using it, so they know exactly what that takeaway is and what they should actually do to act on it. So drilling into that a little bit and looking specifically at AI, how has that been changing the way you've been able to gather and distribute competitive intelligence?
So for me, the way we pursue, and I think that is still the case for many organizations as well, is the combination of both the mind and the machine approach. So automate where you can, train the internal platforms the best you can to improve the quality of insights that you send to end users, and have also more timely answers that you want to feed to them. And thanks to our internal platform, we have been able to aggregate a large set of data, which are already collected, cleaned, and harmonized, analyzed, and shared to our end users thanks to that, without having us to intervene. So this is a great time saver for us, and the machine piece really helps us on that and frees up time for us to do more higher value type of jobs, introducing competitive thinking into strategic messaging or meetings. We need to be closer to our business people as well. And we don't have to worry about the whole intelligence program, because we know that this is happening at the back end, and this is the power of all the automation, all the programs that are running in the back end. So that's really the element for us that is important. Of course, you need to have the mind piece, because the mind piece, this is where it doesn't stop just at the data, right? Or it doesn't just stop at having all the Excels and all the things, right? It's also about sharing key threats, opportunities, being able to identify what can strategically make a difference for our company as well. And that's the fact that the machine helps us to save all this time in the gathering and all in the early steps actually is key to our experts in the company, because like that we can really focus on the so what, on the what does it mean to us, and we can work much closer to the teams, like to all the business teams, to all the asset teams, and so on within the company. So that's really a big jump for us in the way we approached this all CI, BI, knowledge management type of questions, shifting away from the old days of the 60 pages reports to go back to it up to today, and the business partners type of activity we are having.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's the so what that's really the critical part that's going to help move your business forward. Information is just information if people don't actually know how to use it. And you get so much of it from so many different channels, and there's so much different stimulus that's coming in to anybody at any given point, that really having that takeaway and improving, to your point on the mind element, improving everybody, not just the people who are collecting and analyzing this, but those who are asking for the information, improving their ability to understand business context and what the point is of having this information, I think also helps with that collection side of it as well. So as you are talking about the machine side and the AI behind what's going into competitive intelligence, there's certainly a lot of hype around AI and generative AI, then it can realistically create robust and accurate answers. I think you guys have been doing some piloting of different generative AI tools and have been, working with like trust issues or just reliability around them as well. So especially when you're in a field like competitive intelligence, where you really need to have like strong trust in the data that's actually coming out. So what are you doing today within that space, and what are some areas that you're really hoping to expand the use of AI in the future?
So today, our use is rather limited, to be very honest. Mm-hmm. But before starting any project, for example, what I like to do is to quickly consult for example, ChatGPT, or Bard, or you name it, to quickly actually get familiarized with a topic, a concept, or a terminology. It can save you some time, to see, okay, quickly, what is available out there already on this topic? How can we scope it maybe? Do we know already some researchers or analysis which have been conducted on that? Of course, we know there is a time lag, right, between what's out there and how and it all depends on how the model is fed. But at the end, it remains a quick way to get started. In the past, we would be spending, I don't know, X amount of hours doing some desk research to be able to familiarize with the topic first. Now you can just ask your question, you get an instant feedback, and it's a good enough kind of start, and it's really a big time saver. And in the future, what I'm hoping for, and also what we've been testing to some extent, is to have a more integrated version of that, meaning also integrated into our internal platforms and knowledge hubs to target and have improved insights as a result of it, right? Because what's important is to make it meaningful for you and to avoid all the noise and to be sure it speaks to your tools and it speaks to your company. This will for sure improve the outcome out of it, right? And another element of it is to have it closer to real time. For me, ideally, the ideal world would be you ask a question, the system presents you all the answers, the contact person, even maybe the project leaders, even who's working on what. And by the time, by this, what I mean is not just stopping at okay, here is document A, B, and C. You can consult, but you have the summary of it. Who is working on similar topics. You put a face on it. Adding a little bit the human element to that as well. And for me, it should also go in the direction of being a thinking partner. Like, have you considered this and this? Did you also explore that and that? And so on and so forth. But obviously, I'm not technically qualified enough to develop that further. But I think AI has a good future ahead.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. And one of my favorite things, and I think it's underused actually today when people are talking about AI, but is the first point that what you were saying is how to educate yourself on things and get some background information. So I think people are very capable of picking on more things, whether it's a new market that you're trying to go after, just trying to get some background on like new terminology or a new field within the company. Maybe you're working with a new stakeholder in the company and you want to understand what are like their roles and responsibilities. It can just empower you so much to just, within just a few minutes, give you so much background information that before you have a meeting with somebody or before you start taking like requirements from like a new team or on a new project, it can just set a lot of context so you can go in asking better questions and then you can get a better outcome from that as well. So I really like that. And to your point on, you can ask it to challenge you and your ideas. ChatGPT in particular has the voice element that was released over the past few months. And I like just chatting with it sometimes when I'm just trying to brainstorm with myself. And it essentially acts as an assistant to me and challenges different ideas that I have or starts poking holes. So I start expanding on my own thinking as well. And then you get the transcription, which is quite nice on the other end. But given the hype cycle, it's causing a change in expectations on everything from what will be delivered to how fast data is going to be coming in. So how have these expectations changed from stakeholders receiving the competitive intelligence you're gathering?
Yeah, I think it's there is a shift that has been observed versus some years back. And when people were exhausted by too much info flying to their mailbox versus the need to know now everything almost real time or instantly, right? And the primary aim is to be involved immediately on anything new and stay on the top of things of their respective business areas, for example. And I think the words that come to mind when speaking about such topics are all related to the time, the acceleration, the accelerated path of content flow, etc. And in some cases, this goes back to the simple alerts or notification or even emails with the news on it, and this for me then brings the question of what does a user prefer now quickly when something is new, or now know a bit later with some explanations and impacts added to the full story and so on. So there is still today, and I'm not sure we need to do either or maybe both are possible. It's all a matter of what is the preference of your stakeholder at the end of the day. But there is clearly a shift that we've observed in the past years where the instantivity. I don't know if this English word is existing, but if that is really kind of taking over to stay on top and be informed constantly. So that's to one point of the answer, according to me. I also think, however, that not all the CI users and consumers can be categorized like that, and an element of individualization and customization is also increasingly important. What we've been observed, some people like just to have a weekly recap, others prefer daily, others prefer monthly. It all depends the way you work, the way you consume the information and all the content that you want to use. So the frequency element is one aspect that you never satisfy everyone with choosing one, choosing either a week or a day or whatever. And the second piece of differentiation or maybe customization is the content itself. Some people are just fine to get whatever raw data or raw news kind of which are available. They draw their own conclusions, do their own analysis, do their own stuff. They're happy to do that. And some others, however, prefer to have the full stuff cooked. It's like if you use that analogy of cooking, you have either people that buy all the ingredients, do it themselves, and you can use, say, like intelligence dishes cooked in the kitchens for them versus getting everything raw. So you have the mix of both, and today both exists. The majority may prefer to go for dinner, be served with a complete dish, ready to eat and consume and just digest it, right? While others prefer to do the whole preparation themselves. And an interesting fact it was that I lately joined the Semicon conference in Berlin. And this is usually a great event, lots of CIMI professionals joining this and so on. And there were some peers that were discussing the importance of going back to bringing something more physical and tangible to their stakeholders internally in the form of a book, in the form of, market book or something similar. And for a while, I was like really wondering, what should I do with this? How, what's the value proposition at the end? How should I react to this? But because this is what we were doing 10 years back, and those people are doing that now. And so it poses lots of questions to me. But at the end, for me, it's just a matter of maybe what I figured out after thinking through that. It's a matter of company culture, of what is at which stage the company is at, what is the best value proposition or knowledge dissemination kind of method or strategy that company has. And if this is just sending a book out, publishing this on a yearly basis, then that's fine as well. You don't need to always go for the latest technology or everything, right? But it's really, for me, it goes back to assessing the needs of your customers, your internal customers.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. And it is fascinating to see how things kind of go in like circular waves as well. Like old ideas start to resurface once they're used less, because part of it's about how can you stand out and be unique and present information in a way that people are going to start to respond to it and not just be another email that gets ignored. I've seen other ideas, like people put on like news shows that get sent out to the whole company, or like they do podcasts that, if executives are going to the gym in the morning, they like to just like pop in like their AirPods or something in their headphones and listen to it. And that's how they get their updates. So there's a lot of different creative ideas that people are working on to put all of these together. But it is interesting how it becomes circular in that way. But as you were saying, like technology and AI are really upping the game in competitive intelligence by making gathering digital information relatively easy compared to what it was, 5 to 10 years ago. This also means that the stakes have been raised to find something more compelling and useful. This is something that you've been touching on throughout the podcast as well. And much of that bespoke insight does not come from AI, but it comes from the mind, as you were saying earlier, but it's from the expertise and the digging and the higher value, like primary and secondary research as well. So do you agree with that mindset? And excluding AI, what are some of those go-to methods on gathering CI that you're using?
So yeah, if you ask me like that, I tend to agree to what you said, yes. And I'm also deeply convinced that knowledge within organizations like ours, for example, or companies is often like underestimated or underused even. And before going deep into any project, what we tried to do and we have developed over the past years is really to first look at what's all available and at hand internally. Who and where are the subject matter experts? What do they know? How can they help? And those are all very critical and crucial questions to us. And having this network in place is really the bread and butter, if you want, because this is what we need. This is what will help you to identify the status quo on a topic in-house. It will help you to know, okay, to do a pause, what do we all know already together collectively in terms of knowledge around a given topic on a project before we even start to go outside and start to look for big consultancy companies or whatever, or running into big data purchases. First, okay, what is in there? So that for me is a very critical step in the process, and that's what really helps us as well to get started often. Mm-hmm. And then also before initiating any new contract with external sources or data providers and so on, what we do, we also survey our internal users and we try to understand, okay, either face-to-face or directly or via an online survey, we try to understand what is it that they need and what is it for that they needed it, so that we are sure we scope the needs and we have everything together when at the end we take those decisions, because the feedback is really the key element in the entire loop for us. And mm-hmm. for me, that's the best way, in a way, to be sure that you gather and you compile everything that you need for the people you need it for, Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was clear enough, but...
No, I think it was, and I've talked about this on the podcast before as well, but I think it really goes into the concept of the 5 whys, that to really deliver something that's going to be of value to your audience, it's not just about asking them what they want, but asking them why 5 times mm-hmm. to really get to that end reason, because that can also change the approach that you might take into, like, what data sources do you need, or what type of analysis or what type of presentation do you need, based on what, not just what decision are they making, but why are they making that decision and what's the context behind that decision as well. And I guess based off of that, intelligence doesn't really matter to a team unless they're actually able to apply it. So it needs to be very actionable to them in order to improve outcomes for the business as a whole. So adoption is one piece that's pretty critical to this, and using insights to improve decisions. So at Syngenta, you guys have developed a great way to understand and then scale adoption, and that's helped you guys get an impressive lift in adoption in your competitive intelligence programs over time. So could you walk us through a little bit more detail of the survey that you're using on your stakeholders and how you can continue to adapt and improve usage?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as you heard already from the previous question, maybe, is the value of feedback, right? For us, we live in a time where feedback is constant. So we decided also that we need to apply that to what our users need internally. So what we've done is a lot of mixing face-to-face interviews, also meeting with, doing some stakeholder engagements, regular surveys to check the pulse, the need, what are the key problematic, being ahead of the curve by understanding what are the strategic agendas of all our key stakeholders for the year going forward, and so on. And this helps us to anticipate a little bit throughout the year what is it that they need from us, how can we best support them, and so on. And the contact with stakeholders is really key to us, and that helps us to bring actually the highest impact to them, because knowing what is on top of mind helps us to define which will be the scope of what we work for. It helps us to tailor our outcomes better to what towards their needs as well. And it's important also to keep connecting the dots within our organization, because being on top of all of these strategic agendas or business needs helps us to also, really put the people together that need to be together. Will also make us kind of articulating a little bit the cross-functional thinking. across the organization, linking also often the work done at country level with what is done globally, for example. And all of that is really key for us to, to keep having the ball rolling in a way, right? Mm-hmm. This is we can also go back to the example of our internal platform that we've developed, right? We started that process in 2017-18, something like that. We like to call our platform the living animal. Basically, the content keeps evolving, adding new markets, adding new trends and things like that, and the features keep evolving as well, being more interactive. Attracting new user, expanding across the group, for example. But all that is only possible because we keep going through these constant waves of feedback requests, surveys, and so on. And that's really, for me, a central element. Maybe I'm repeating myself here, but that's really a central element.
Yeah. So I think that's great. And you're also working with a lot of different stakeholders as you are increasing the adoption. So who are those stakeholders that you're working with? Like, what are the departments that they're in? And then how does the type of information that they ask for differ?
There's no request for me, which is like another one. So there is always a differentiating factor that can be it from the requester itself, for the audience, for the objective of the request as well. Mm-hmm. And key for me is to always know what is the level of knowledge within the team or the audience, the seniority level, the function, and also the desired output, and this will help us a lot on scoping the project in a better way, and also to then be sure the relevant outcome is delivered. For commercial teams, after, for example, new business opportunities or want to identify portfolio gaps, for example, while R&D teams want to understand how they stand versus a competitor when it comes to innovation pipeline, or they want to do a landscaping project as well, for example. And I think that's the beauty of our job, right? Being able to serve all those stakeholders and projects effectively. But as we are the go-to kind of department or the go-to function together with BI and strategy, having the insights into all of these different functional needs helps us also then later on to connect the dots. And this, I'm going again back to what I mentioned earlier, acting as a connector or maybe saying, oh, how is this request linking to the other one, and how could they potentially even help or inform each other, and so on.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think you're actually in a very unique and special position in the organization that you do get to see and understand so much stuff that's happening within the organization, and you really understand like what are the decisions different teams are making, and you have such a big influence on it as well. So I think that's quite cool. But Joëlle, I have one final question for you. So just as we look towards the future, what are you most excited to see as a form of innovation in this field?
So for me, clearly, there are a couple of things, right? But one thing is above the rest is more the way the acceleration of generative AI tools. How is the path of adoption of those? How also those generative AI tools will be unleashed in the future? How can it help on further curating data sets specific to an organization, and so on and so forth? And but on top of that, for me, is the collaboration of humans around that. For me, this will be the cherry on top, I would say, because I guess all these technology advancements, they are all remarkable, and they will happen rapidly, and they will continue to happen rapidly. But on the other hand, the how you incorporate the human element to it, for me, will be the central piece. How everything speaks to each other, because for me, the power lies more into the connectivity between all the systems and tools, plus the human knowledge on top, versus just the systems or the technological innovation as such. Because there is always a need for human, because there is no and to stay very realistic on that, there is no data set for tacit knowledge, for example, no way to connect the machine in the way a relationship with a colleague is working, for example, or all these kind of things, right? So for me, the interactivity between both is really the central point, and the one which I'm mostly excited about in the future, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool. I think as technology evolves and, you get more digital communication, having trying to make it more human communication and interaction is increasingly important as well. Well, Joëlle, I think you shared some really great insights in here. So thank you once again for joining us. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
Thank you very much, Erin.
Great. Thanks for listening to this episode of Decisions Now. Check out all episodes at evalueserve.com/podcast, and don't forget to subscribe for future episodes.